Sure. My name is Jiwon Woo. I originally born in Korea, but I grew up in U.S. Boston area. So I consider myself as artist designer, but also researcher, because nowadays this mixed research is quite necessary, whatever fields you are in. I like to use life science and apply this to kind of art and design scene, basically, easily speaking. And for me, it's quite important to kind of not only the industrial design scene, but more of a kind of a design or conceptual design or art that educate other people and make them to think about this kind of new emerging area or kind of things that they need to learn about. It's quite hard because every project is extremely different. One example could be a kind of a sculpture form, or another project can be a kind of a design of a wearing mask, or another project can be quite a collaboration with Michelin chef, so it would be a food dish. So for me, it's quite easier to just explain like specific project to everybody. Sure, one of the work that I did is kind of investigating natural way of spider silk. So I was very interested in the spider silk material and its original property and how strong it can be, how kind of mysterious it is, but at the same time, how people has a negative conception of spider as an animal itself. But they were very focusing on the material. But a lot of them were produced very unnaturally, I would say. So I was investigating how could we find this material more naturally and use this property as a wearing mask, because it has a property of filtering the particles in the air. So basically, how can we have better positive relationship with the animal itself naturally and get the material naturally and use it as a for maybe near future? How could we use that for the wearing mask as a filter? It was interesting because it first went to at that time I was a graduate student at UPenn, University of Pennsylvania, and we really liked the project, and we were submitting it to Biodesign Challenge Summit, and we were representing our university, and it was great actually. We went to specific sites in the United States where the spiders they usually don't, but they naturally gathered and live together and build this giant webs that's almost like a building size. And it happens only when there's a specific environmental things come together. So for example, if there's enough moisture, if there's a specific kind of a surface, if it's very dark. So in that kind of few reasons, spiders gather up and they build natural giant webs, which we can get the webs naturally. And then we went to study more with the designers in a kind of haute culture way, because it was a very experimental thing, and used these natural webs as a mask. So designing a wearing mask made of a spider silk. And we got a lot of attention actually from those companies who make spider silk synthetically, and also also as a like fashion scene, because like specific areas globally there's a lot of air pollutions, and they were thinking as using the material or what would be another way of wearing other than just simple white mask. Our piece, I mean, we never like mass manufactured or like sold it or anything, but we produced a few pieces. So one is actually permanent collection in one of the museums in San Francisco, and we have shown it to many different galleries or shows. But people were, I guess, paying attention of it in a many different way, because it's not just a kind of a aesthetical piece, but to make you think about kind of animal itself, how we as in human perspective uses animals or kind of bugs as almost like a material. And also about, like, in future setting, how would you think about the air pollution, and how would you communicate or bridge different living organisms around you and yourself. So another project that I did, which eventually evolved into the third project that I am showing here, and also at the Ars Electronica. But the second piece was about making, how should I say, almost like a utensil or tools that touches up on different areas inside of your mouth, and try to bring in specific memories or nostalgia. So the piece was called sonmat, which is a Korean word. Of literal translate will be hand taste, but it's usually a word where you use to compliment a dish or comment about the taste connecting your memory. So same concept will be like my Italian friend who will say, "Oh, I miss my grandmother's tomato sauce," things like that touches you up on your memory. So I designed these tools or utensils with help of some of my dental studies students, and also neuroscientists, because I had no idea about that science part, but I was curious about what you had been eating in your younger age. Why doesn't it go away, and why do you always connect the things with what you put inside your mouth? So it was an interesting project, the utensils, and also I did some like short movies and photographs of using the utensils to connect, and kind of explains like why does it has this kind of significance to you. So I think it also relates to my kind of interdisciplinary background, because I've been into many different disciplines and came back to kind of settle down into design scene. But whatever field you are, kind of making connection to different discipline and putting them together is very getting more importance these days. And for me, I exactly don't know how I get the idea first, but I approach to when I have a question or curiosity, because I always ask why, or how would that question apply. Let's say I have one question, like how would like mathematician think about it, like how would artists think about it, how would like grandma think about it. So keep questioning to many, that applies to many different people. And then if I need help, it's quite, and people are willing to help, like based on my experience, only if they have time and passion, and if they are like interested about it. Many different scientists or specialists, professionals, they were very willing to help. In the second work, when I was doing this making and designing utensils, I was thinking, when you put something into your mouth, when it's food, I immediately made a connection with my background, like Korean background. And about 70% of Korean food is fermented or use fermented sauce. And fermentation is done by yeast, living organisms, right? And also I make connection to what you cook, you use your hand naturally. And there's also yeast living on your hands. And then I made connection to that word that I told you before, sonmat, hand taste. Like why is there this such word in Korea? Like sonmat, hand taste, such a weird word, right? And different cultures have a similar concept, but there was no such word in different cultures, I noticed. They have this concept and idea, but they didn't have a word for it. So then I tried to find like a specialist in Korea, like where did that word come from? But they also didn't really know about it. Then I thought there must be a connection into, you know, our food making and fermentation culture. And I thought there must be something that you receive from your mother or grandmother. So like genealogically, there must be connection because when you're inside your mother's womb, you receive all these microorganisms from your mother. So, you know, would there be this connection from generation by generation and making that culture from that generation to generation? So like what's the role of the living organism on your body and food culture, and like how would we continue it, basically? Like what would be the authenticity of culture, and in the future how would that look like? So I made this kind of plan, like how would I do this, because it was such a massive multidisciplinary project. And then I noticed that I also need a fund. So I applied to this award program called Biodesign Award in Netherlands. And I was very lucky that I received the award. And it's very nice because they give you a fund and they connect you to science institute who can help you out in science part. So I could continue basically that idea and that concept project proposal into real life. Yeah. I first basically travel back to Korea and meet the linguists and the traditional historians, and also what they designate in Korea as a intangible cultural heritage. Those are usually the human beings who are like masters of a very historical practice, and they designate as a national treasure, kind of. And I met a lot of them who are practicing fermentation cooking. So, for example, like those who make for soy sauce or kimchi, or doenjang, which is a soy sauce paste, kind of, and also makgeolli, that's a rice wine, fermented rice wine, and those who has been making them very traditionally over like 60 years, let's say. And then so collecting all those materials, and then found so basically did a social study, found 4 different Korean heritage families living in 4 different countries who has 3 generations are alive. So grandmother, mother, and mother, and those who were also willing to do interview with me and get the photographs of them, and also get a swab of their hands to find out the living organism, the specific organisms of theirs. And then went to Utrecht, which was in Netherlands, because I was connected to microbiology department at the Utrecht University. And they helped me out to find out the specific living organisms of those 12 participants. But then we narrowed down to hand yeast, because there are thousands of living organisms on hand. But there were still a lot of numbers even when we were narrowed down to just look at the hand yeast. And then my study came out, there is a relationship between family line. So wherever, let's say wherever you are living geologically apart, there is something that you receive from your mother and grandmother. Yeah, and so I mean that 12 participant, it's quite small number to publish a science paper. However, it was quite enough number and result for my project. So what I wanted to do was kind of So with that result afterwards, then I wanted to visualize and kind of deliver this idea, like what I found out. And so basically those cultural, genealogically continuing living organisms are related to our culture and eating habits and these memories you have. So it came out as more of an art piece in this case. So I made a kind of mechanical and conceptual object. Some people think it's kind of a part of kitchen or kind of a furniture or kind of a machinery looking thing that that can capture one's hand living organism and contain and grow, and later use that specific living organism. I would say, in this case, I say 손맛 when you cook. So let's say my grandmother is like 90 years old and she's getting sick. So I want to capture her hand 손맛 and then contain it and maybe later use that when you cook it to remember her taste, kind of. And I also made a documentary that I am showing in here of all my journey, basically. The people that I met, the process that I did, how I made this. And then another part was a collage of photographs and video of 12 participants' hands. And a small short documentaries that I took with a specific family. I feel like the conceptual design or experimental design is where someone or anybody can very extend the limit, kind of. When it's a quite practical or if it's in need right now, there is always kind of a limit. Or if I think about, I don't know, kind of let's say I'm designing a clothes, for example, then there is always this limit of kind of a material that's available right now, or the money that I have to think about, and all this kind of boundary that I have to think about. But if you say about conceptual or experimental, it's something that educate people, and it's something that make people to think about that's really important for the future, but that you really don't. You do more as a student at school, but if you're outside of it and if you're in the field, but it's interesting because nowadays the bigger corporates, they are actually finding very big needs about this kind of experimental design. Not only to kind of promote them as we are even thinking about this kind of stuff, but also to kind of, I think they're doing a very important role to kind of educate people and then bringing them into get interest to it. Like, why would you do that will be a quite stupid question to me. Because it's almost like asking, why do you think? You know what I mean? So it's something very naturally what everybody does when they're young, but really don't do as you grow up, and it's because it doesn't help you as like living, or it doesn't help you with earning money, or it doesn't do anything with your business, right? But it's sometimes maybe you don't notice, but maybe it's something you do while you're, let's say, doing nothing or drinking coffee, or if you're just like in your dream or something, you see those people who does this kind of design and think about, oh, this is brilliant, but you just don't do it. It's interesting because I don't have any specific religion. But it's always my work. It's almost like it's part of you all the time, what you produce. And that's why I never sell my work. I personally only exhibit or talk about work, but I refuse all the kind of buying my work. And it's part of it because I don't think somebody owning my work would really make them understand it better or has any meaning about it. Biological part and religious part with my project will be something that's not really related, I would say. It's not something that I think about. I never approach biology as a science. I just think as a tool for me. Because it's same as if you do a design, you know, it's also a tool kind of to communicate and express your idea. So for me, if I do some kind of project that's related to religion, then using biology wouldn't be a problem because that will be a tool to express the religious project. I think living science is getting more important in many different areas, not only the food or environmental or pollution area, but also as almost as a next step to kind of mechanical technology. And for me, I noticed a lot of time, based on this standard deviation, it's not very easy to get knowledge or even published paper in the science discipline if you are not in the science discipline. And I thought that's something we need to change because there should be always kind of equalization in sharing the knowledge, basically. I understand that they are very afraid of releasing all this kind of science knowledge because unprofessionals could do a harm or there could be a danger. However, if it's something, if it's in kind of a not understanding or getting knowledge, it's always because you say like science. Some of my scientist friends will say, you know, I do art as hobby, right? And for me, doing science could be almost doing a hobby as a designer and artist. But that just sounds very weird sometimes because it's not, because science is not really kind of shared thing or something you practice easily. And I think there's a problem and I think there needs a change in the future. I feel like this I don't want to say field, but this area of biodesign and body art is not really. It's quite a new thing in Korea compared to U.S. or in EU countries. But there has been these people who are practicing similar things. So right now, because I kind of moved to Seoul right now, and I'm going to continue my practices in connection with my friends in different continents. Yeah, I would like to find more artists and designers who has interest in biodesign in Seoul and kind of make this group of people and have our own scene kind of. Yeah, this is really exciting for me because me and Helene have been only doing Skype call and video call, and I have been always amazed by her works. And actually, Dan Grushkin from GenSpace was the one who kind of connected us before a few years ago. And we always just have been catching up each other's work and what we are doing. And she was very nice enough to kind of invite me to here. And I was in Austria, Ars Electronica, so it was quite much closer than where I used to be in US, Cambridge, or in Seoul, Korea. So I was like, yeah, of course. And I'm here. It's very interesting place. I think even the location-wise, it's somewhere. It's very active, dynamic. It's where all these different people kind of come together it has history, and it has its own kind of style. I think it has all this component of how this new things come together. Everything kind of blends old, new, different cultures and come together with this new technology and people who are interested. I think it's fantastic.